My son got married and said nothing.
I had never seen before in my life. She was wearing a white dress, not a fancy dress, something simple. She had dark hair, dark eyes. She was smiling at my son like he was the only person on earth. The caption said, Mr. and Mrs. Evan Marshall, 4.5.2025. My son is Evan Marshall. My son is Evan Thomas Marshall III. I am Evan Thomas Marshall II. His mother used to call him Little Evan until he got too tall for that. He got married on April 5th. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. I found out about my only son's wedding while standing in my kitchen at 6:15 in the morning, wearing my old robe with a torn pocket and a pair of slippers that smell like the garage. I scrolled down. There were more photos. A cutting of the cake, a first dance under string lights, a group photo of the bridal party. I recognized some faces. My son's friends from high school, the ones who used to come over and eat my food and call me Mr. Marshall like I was somebody. They were all there. They all knew. They all kept the secret. There was a photo of his mother, my ex-wife. Her name is Diane. She was standing next to the new woman, the bride. They were holding hands. Diane was crying. Happy tears, according to the caption. Happy tears for her son on his wedding day. Diane looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. That was part of the problem. I put the phone down. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just stood there in the kitchen with the coffee maker still dripping and the cream getting warm on the counter. I thought about calling him. I thought about calling my daughter. I thought about driving to Diane's house and asking her what the hell happened. But I did not do any of those things. I finished my coffee. I washed the mug. I went to the bathroom and brushed my teeth. I looked at myself in the mirror. I am 68 years old. My hair is gray and thin on top. I have a scar above my left eye from when I fell off a ladder fixing the gutters on that house. That house I am going to tell you about. That house matters. I worked 37 years as a union electrician. I started when I was 21. I retired at 58 because my knees gave out and my hands started shaking. Not from drinking. From work. From 37 years of pulling wire and climbing scaffolds and breathing in drywall dust and fiberglass insulation. I gave every paycheck to Diane for the first 20 years of our marriage. I thought that was what you were supposed to do. You work, you come home, you hand over the money. She managed everything. The bills, the savings, the mortgage, the kids' school accounts. I never looked at a single statement. I never asked a single question. I trusted her. We had 2 children, Evan and his older sister Lauren. Lauren is 39 now. Evan is 36. I was there when both of them were born. I held them in the delivery room. I cried both times because I could not believe that something that small and that perfect came from me. I changed diapers. I drove to soccer practice, I sat through school plays where they forgot their lines, and I clapped louder than any other parent. I worked nights, sometimes, double shifts, triple shifts, because we needed the money. Because kids cost money. Because the roof needed replacing, and the car needed new tires, and Diane wanted a vacation in Florida every winter. I never said no. I never complained. That was my job. Provide, protect, love. Be steady. The divorce happened in 2017. Diane told me she was not happy. She said we had grown apart. She said she needed something different. She said it was not my fault. That was the funniest part. She said it was not my fault while she was packing her bags and calling a lawyer and moving into an apartment across town that I later found out belonged to a man she had been seeing for 2 years. His name was Rick. He sold medical equipment. He had hair plugs and a boat and a smile that made me want to break his teeth. But I did not break his teeth. I just signed the papers. I gave her the house. I gave her the car. I gave her half my pension. I kept the truck. I kept my tools. I kept the cabin up north. That cabin. That one matters too. The cabin was my father's.
He built it in 1978 on a small lake about 3 hours north of the city. Pine trees, loons calling at night, a wood-burning stove that heated the whole place.
I spent every summer of my childhood there. Then I took my own kids there, every summer. Evan learned to fish off that dock. Lauren learned to swim in that cold, dark water. Diane hated the cabin. She said it was dirty. She said it smelled like smoke. She said there were too many spiders. In the divorce, she tried to take it. She said it was a marital asset. My lawyer fought for it. My lawyer was a man named Greg who smoked too much and had yellow fingers, but he knew what he was doing. He kept the cabin in my name. That was the only thing I walked away with that mattered. After the divorce, I lived alone for 2 years. Then I met someone. Her name was Carol. She was a widow. She had kind eyes and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. We dated for a while. It was nice. But my kids hated her. They said she was just after my money. What money? I had a pension and a truck and a cabin. That was it. Diane got everything else. But Lauren and Evan looked at Carol like she was a criminal. They made nasty comments at dinner. They refused to come over if she was there. They told me I was disrespecting their mother's memory. Even though their mother was not dead, their mother was alive and remarried to Rick, the hair plug salesman. But I guess that was different. I broke up with Carol because I did not want to lose my kids. That was my mistake. That was the moment I look back on now and think, you idiot, you stupid old fool. You chose people who would later throw you away. But I did not know that then. I thought I was being a good father. I thought I was putting family first. I thought they would remember that. They did remember it. They remembered it as weakness. After Carol was gone, I spent more time alone. I started going to the cabin by myself. I would drive up on Friday afternoon and come back Sunday night. I fixed things. I replaced the old windows. I stained the deck. I cleared the brush that had grown up around the path to the lake. It kept me busy. It kept me from thinking about how quiet my apartment was. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment near the highway. The walls were thin, the neighbors were loud, but it was cheap and it was mine, and I did not care. My kids came to visit sometimes. Lauren would bring her husband Mark and their 2 kids. Evan would come alone, or sometimes with a girlfriend, but never the same girlfriend twice. They would sit on my couch and scroll through their phones while I made them dinner. They would complain about the food. They would complain about the temperature. They would complain about the drive. But they came, and I was grateful. I was so grateful that I did not see what was really happening. They were not visiting me because they loved me. They were visiting me because they were waiting. I started to notice small things after a while. Lauren would ask about the cabin. How much land was it on? How many acres? What were the property taxes? She would mention that the lake was getting popular. That developers were buying up lots. That the value had probably gone up a lot. I did not think anything of it at the time. She was my daughter. She was just making conversation. That is what I told myself. Evan would ask about my pension. Did I have a lump sum option? Did I name beneficiaries? Did I update the paperwork after the divorce? I told him yes. I told him I had named him and Lauren as equal beneficiaries. He nodded. He said good. He said that was smart. He said I should make sure everything was locked down so no one could challenge it. I thought he was looking out for me. He was my son. He was just being careful. That is what I told myself. The weekend of March 29th, I drove up to the cabin. It was a Friday. The snow had just melted. The lake was still cold, but the ice was gone. I wanted to open the place up for the season. I wanted to clean out the wood stove and sweep the cobwebs and put the furniture back on the deck. I called Evan on my way up. No answer. I left a voicemail. Hey buddy, just heading to the cabin for the weekend. Give me a call when you get a chance. I love you. He did not call back. I called Lauren. She answered. She sounded distracted. She said she was busy with the kids. She said she would call me later. She did not call later. I spent the weekend alone. I worked on the cabin. I fixed a leak under the kitchen sink. I replaced the toilet flapper. I swept out the fireplace. I sat on the dock in the evening and watched the sun go down behind the pines. It was quiet. It was peaceful. I wished someone was there with me. I wished my kids cared about that place the way I did. But they never did. Even when they were little, they complained about the bugs and the cold water and the long drive. Diane poisoned them against that cabin. She told them it was a waste of time. She told them their father cared more about a building than about them. That was not true. But they believed her. Children believe whatever their mother tells them. I drove home on Sunday. I stopped for gas at a station about an hour from the city. I checked my phone. I had a notification from Instagram. A post from Lauren. Photos of her kids at an indoor playground. I liked the photos. I commented, "Looking good. Love you." She did not respond. Then I saw something else. A notification from a name I did not recognize. Someone had tagged Evan in a post. The profile picture was a woman. The name was something like Becca with a bunch of flowers next to it. I clicked on it. It was a private account. I could not see anything. I shrugged and put my phone away. I did not know that was the first sign. I did not know that Becca was the woman in the white dress. I did not know that I was 3 weeks away from finding out that my entire family had been lying to my face. The next 2 weeks were normal. Or they seemed normal. I went to the grocery store. I went to the hardware store.
I went to the diner where I eat breakfast every Tuesday and Thursday. I talked to my neighbor, Bob, about the weather and the baseball team and the price of lumber. Bob is 72. His wife died 3 years ago. His kids live in Arizona. He never sees them. He told me once that he wished he had never had children because all they do is break your heart. I thought he was being dramatic. I thought he was just bitter. I do not think that anymore. On the night of April 4th, I called Evan. He did not answer. I texted him, "You around? Want to grab dinner this week?" He texted back 2 hours later. "Busy with work. Maybe next week." I said, "Okay, I love you." He said, "Love you too." That was the last time he said it to me. The wedding was April 5th. I did not know. I was home that day. I cleaned my apartment. I did laundry. I watched a baseball game. I went to bed at 9:30. My son was getting married 5 miles away, and I was sleeping in my sad little apartment with the thin walls and the noisy neighbors, and I did not know anything. I found out 3 weeks later. 6:15 in the morning. Coffee, cream, Instagram, the whole thing. I did not call anyone right away. I waited. I sat in my recliner for 3 hours just staring at the wall. The wall was beige. I had been meaning to paint it for 5 years. I never did. I thought maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it was a fake wedding. Maybe it was a photo shoot. Maybe it was a prank. My mind was grabbing at anything.
Anything to make it not true. At 9:30, I called Lauren. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" I said, "When did Evan get married?" There was silence on her end. I could hear her breathing. I could hear her kids screaming in the background. She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Do not lie to me. I saw the photos. I saw the wedding. I saw Diane there. I saw everyone there. When did you know?" She started crying. Not sad crying, frustrated crying, the kind of crying people do when they get caught. She said, "Dad, it was not my secret to tell. Evan asked me not to say anything. He said he wanted to tell you himself." I said, "He did not tell me. I found out on Instagram, on my phone, in my kitchen, while I was drinking coffee." She said, "I know. I am so sorry. He was going to tell you. He just needed time." I said, "Time for what? Time for what, Lauren?" She said he was afraid of how you would react. He thought you would be angry. He thought you would say something to ruin the day. I said, "I have never ruined a single day of that boy's life. I carried him on my shoulders through Disney World when he was 4 years old and my back was killing me, and I did not complain once. I paid for his college. I co-signed his first car. I gave him money for a down payment on his house. I have never once in 36 years done anything to hurt him. And he could not invite me to his wedding because he was afraid I would ruin it?" Lauren said it was complicated. I hung up the phone. I called Evan. He did not answer. I called again. He did not answer. I texted him, "Call me right now." He did not call. I texted him again. "I know about the wedding. You have 1 hour to call me, or I swear to God I will do something you will regret." He called back in 7 minutes. His voice was quiet. He said, "Dad." I said, "Why?" He said, "It was not personal." I said, "Not personal? You got married without me. Your mother was there. Your sister was there. Your friends were there. I was not there. How is that not personal?" He said,
"You and Mom do not get along. I did not want drama." I said, "I have not spoken to your mother in 2 years. I have never caused drama at any family event. I sat in the back row at Lauren's wedding. I left early so I would not make anyone uncomfortable. I have done nothing but stay out of the way, and you could not invite me to your wedding?" He said, "Becca did not want you there." The name hit me like a shovel. Becca, the woman I had never met, the woman in the white dress, the woman my son chose over me before I even knew she existed. He said she did not want me there. He said she had heard stories about me. He said she thought I would be difficult. I asked, "What stories? Who told her stories?" He said, "Mom told her some things. Lauren told her some things. They said you were bitter about the divorce. They said you held grudges. They said you might show up and make a scene." I said, "I have never made a scene in my entire life. I am the quietest person you know.
I am the person who fixes things and pays for things and stays in the background while everyone else takes everything from him. And you believed them over me." He said, "I am sorry, Dad. It is done now. We are married. We are happy. I hope you can be happy for us." I said, "Happy for you. You are happy. That is good. At least someone in this family is happy." He said, "Do not do this. Do not make this about you." "Make this about me? You got married without me. You hid it from me. You let your mother lie to my face. You let your sister lie to my face. And you are telling me not to make this about me?" He said, "I have to go. I will call you later." He did not call later. He did not call the next day. He did not call the day after that. I waited a week. Nothing. I texted him. Nothing. I called Lauren. She said, "Give him space." I said, "I have given him 36 years of space. I am done giving space." She said, "I cannot talk about this right now." I said, "Fine." I hung up. I have not spoken to my daughter in 4 months. I will probably never speak to her again. That is a strange thing to know about your own life, that you have spoken to your child for the last time, and you did not even know it was the last time. I spent the next 2 weeks in a fog. I did not eat much. I did not sleep much. I sat in my recliner and watched television shows I did not care about. I thought about the past. I thought about all the birthdays and Christmases and summer vacations. I thought about teaching Evan to ride a bike. I ran behind him holding the seat. I let go when he was not looking. He rode for 20 feet before he realized I was not holding on anymore. He turned around and looked at me with this huge smile. He said, "Did you see that, Dad?" I said, "I saw it, buddy. You did it." He said, "I knew you were holding on." I said, "I let go a long time ago." He laughed. I laughed. That was a good day. That was a day when I believed that my son loved me. Now I do not know what I believe. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I was at the diner. Bob was there. He asked me how I was doing. I told him everything. I do not know why. I am not a man who shares his feelings. But I told Bob about the wedding and the photos and the phone call and the silence. Bob listened. He nodded. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he said something I will never forget. He said, "You know what I would do?" I said, "What?" He said, "I would take back everything I ever gave them." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You gave your son a down payment on his house, right? You gave him that money. You are on the deed, right?" I said, "I am on the deed. I co-signed the mortgage. I put up 20%. His credit was bad because he had student loans and a car payment, and he had defaulted on a credit card a few years back. The bank would not approve him without me. So I put my name on the house. I put my money in the house. I told him it was a gift. I told him he did not have to pay me back." "But my name stayed on the deed." Bob said, "So it is your house." I said, "Legally it is his house, but my name is on the deed." Bob said, "If your name is on the deed, then it is your house too. You have rights. You could force a sale. You could take your money back. You could leave him with nothing." I stared at Bob. The idea had never crossed my mind. I am not a vengeful person. I am not a person who thinks about hurting other people. But something shifted in my chest at that moment. Something cold. Something hard. I thought about the wedding photos. I thought about Diane holding hands with a woman I had never met. I thought about Lauren crying on the phone, not because she was sorry, but because she got caught. I thought about Evan saying, "Becca did not want you there." I thought about 36 years of being used and ignored and pushed aside and forgotten. I finished my coffee. I paid my bill. I went home and I called my lawyer, Greg, the chain smoker with the yellow fingers. He is retired now, but he gave me the name of a new lawyer, a woman named Harris. She was young, maybe 35. She had sharp eyes and a sharp voice, and she did not waste time. I met with her at her office. I told her the whole story. She listened. She took notes. She asked me for the address of Evan's house. She asked me for the loan documents. She asked me for the deed. I had copies of everything. I keep that stuff in a fireproof safe in my bedroom. I am old. I am organized.
That is what happens when you have been forgotten by everyone. You hold on to your paperwork. Harris looked at the documents. She said, "Your name is on the deed as a joint tenant. That means you have equal ownership rights. You can petition the court for a partition sale. That means the house gets sold and you get half the proceeds. Plus, you can argue that your down payment was a loan rather than a gift. Given the circumstances, we might be able to recover the full amount plus interest." I said, "Do it." She said, "Are you sure? This will destroy your relationship with your son." I said, "He already destroyed it. I am just cleaning up the mess." She filed the papers the next day. Evan was served 2 weeks later. He called me within an hour. His voice was shaking. He said, "What the hell did you do?" I said, "I am taking back what is mine." He said, "You cannot do that." I said, "Watch me." He said, "Becca is pregnant. She is due in September. You are going to make your grandchild homeless." I said, "You should have thought about that before you got married without me." He said, "You are a monster." I said, "I am a monster because I want my money back. You are the one who threw me away like a piece of trash." He said, "I did not throw you away." I said, "You got married without me. You told your wife I was a problem. You listened to your mother who cheated on me and took everything I had. And now you want me to feel sorry for you?" He said, "I hate you." I said, "That is fine. I am starting to hate you too." I hung up.
I did not feel good. I did not feel powerful. I felt sick. I went to the bathroom and threw up. Then I went to my recliner and sat there for the rest of the day. I thought about the baby. I thought about a grandchild I would never hold. I thought about Evan as a little boy running through the sprinklers in the backyard. I thought about how much I loved him. I thought about how much I still loved him, even though he had broken my heart into pieces so small I could not find them all. But I did not stop the sale. The court process moved slowly. Evan hired a lawyer. He tried to fight it. He argued that the down payment was a gift. He argued that I had no right to force a sale. He argued that I was just a bitter old man trying to punish his son for marrying the wrong woman. The judge was a woman named Chen. She was fair. She looked at the documents. She looked at the texts. She looked at the emails. She ruled that my name was on the deed and I had the right to request a partition. She gave Evan 90 days to buy me out at fair market value, or the house would go up for auction. Evan did not have the money to buy me out. He could not get a loan. His credit was still bad. Becca did not work. She was a yoga instructor or something. She did not make enough to qualify. The house went up for auction in August. It sold for $410,000. After fees and taxes and paying off the mortgage, I walked away with $180,000.
My original down payment was $60,000. I made $120,000 in profit from my son's house. That is the part of the story that makes me sound like a villain. I know that. I have accepted it. People will hear this and think I am a bitter old man who ruined his son's life over a wedding invitation. But those people did not live through what I lived through. Those people do not know what it feels like to be erased, to be removed from your own family's history, to find out about your son's wedding on Instagram, to hear your daughter cry not because she hurt you, but because she got caught, to have your ex-wife hold another woman's hand while your son says "I do," to sit alone in a quiet apartment while the people you raised and fed and sacrificed for go on living like you are already dead. The house sold. Evan and Becca moved in with Diane and Rick. I do not know where. I do not want to know. Lauren stopped speaking to me completely. She sent me one text message after the auction. It said, "You are dead to me." I typed back,
Okay. I did not send anything else. What else was there to say? The holidays came. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year. I spent them alone. I bought a turkey breast. I made mashed potatoes from a box. I watched football. I went to bed early. On Christmas morning, I drove to the cabin. The lake was frozen. The snow was deep. I built a fire in the wood stove. I sat on the floor because the furniture was covered in dust. I looked at the walls. I looked at the beams. I looked at the windows I had replaced with my own hands. The cabin was still mine. No one could take that from me. That was something. I thought about leaving the cabin to Evan in my will. I had written it that way years ago. The cabin goes to my son. The rest goes to my daughter. But I changed it after the wedding. I changed it after the phone calls and the silence and the text message that said, "You are dead to me." I found a new lawyer, a different one, a woman named Reynolds who specialized in elder law. She helped me rewrite everything. The cabin goes to a trust. The trust benefits a local organization that teaches kids how to fish, a youth program, the kind of program that takes children who do not have fathers and shows them how to tie a hook and cast a line and sit quietly in a boat waiting for something to bite. Those kids will get the cabin, not Evan, not Lauren, not any future grandchildren I will never meet. Sometimes I think about the baby, the one Becca was carrying in September. I do not know if it was born. I do not know if it was a boy or a girl. I do not know its name. I do not know if it has my son's eyes or my ex-wife's smile or my own stubborn jaw. I do not know anything. That is the worst part. Not the money, not the house, not the court case. The worst part is the not knowing, the silence, the empty space where my family used to be. I still live in the same apartment. The walls are still thin.
The neighbors are still loud. I still go to the diner on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Bob still sits in the same booth. We talk about the weather and the baseball team and the price of everything. We do not talk about our kids anymore. There is no point. I have not spoken to my son in 8 months. I have not spoken to my daughter in 7 months. My ex-wife sent me a letter last week. It was 3 pages of small handwriting. She said I was pathetic. She said I had ruined my relationship with my children over pride. She said I would die alone and no one would come to my funeral. She said that was what I deserved.